OC Rock Radio. It is now time for the Cover 2 podcast, live from the OC Rock Radio studios, and a little later than we usually started, but that doesn't matter. We got a packed show, Jared. How you doing today?
I'm doing well, man. I'm doing very great. It was a good night last night, at least if you were a Laker fan.
Yes.
Got to keep their top 3 pick, which I'm ecstatic about.
What is that, the third year in a row they've got the pick?
It is.
There's no conspiracy there, right?
No, not at all. No, I mean,
just
because Magic is back, that doesn't mean anything, right?
It's one of the most storied franchises in sports history. That doesn't all matter.
No, not at all.
It doesn't matter that the Celtics and Lakers got the 1 and 2 picks. That doesn't matter at all.
Of course not. The NBA isn't pulling anything.
There's no rig in there.
No. This was all luck. This was all on the lottery, okay? I believe that wholeheartedly.
I do too. Because those ping pong balls, you never know where they're going to bounce. Of course, you can't say ping pong balls are lying.
No.
How could you say that?
No, not at all.
It's blasphemous, like Stephen A. Smith would say.
Oh boy.
But all joking aside, solid night, obviously for the Lakers. We're both Lakers fans. We both enjoy watching the Lakers suck or be good each year.
Yeah.
But very interesting. So now that there's a real possibility that they could get Lonzo Ball, and like I was just telling you before we started, they're going to get a good player.
Yes.
Now they're not going to get that third pick where you're getting that kind of secondary top pick. In my opinion, I think it's Fultz and Lonzo Ball are really the guys you wanted, and they're going to get one of those two, barring any weird trade they do or anything like that. So I'm happy. What about you as far as like the logistics of the entire thing?
Yeah, no, the Lakers and if anyone saw Magic Johnson's face right after the Lakers got the number 2 pick, he was smiling and grinning from ear to ear. And I think if you're every Laker fan should be doing the same thing because, like Nick just mentioned, either way, the Lakers will either end up getting Fultz or Ball. Now, it really just depends on what the Celtics are doing, and really the true winners are the Boston Celtics. Not only are they in the Eastern Conference Finals, but they also get the number 1 pick thanks to the Nets. And it was actually funny. Paul Pierce tweeted out last night. He's like, "Did you see that?"
Yeah,
now I don't know the exact quote. I'm paraphrasing here, but Paul Pierce said something along the lines of, "This is how I go out and I retire and I leave the Celtics with something good." And he's referring to when Kevin Garnett, Paul Pierce, when they were with the Celtics and they were traded to the Nets, that trade, in a sense, so the Celtics got back in return this number 1 pick. Thank you to the New Jersey Nets.
Exactly, yeah.
So, the Boston Celtics really, really came out on top with this. Obviously, they have Isaiah Thomas. So do they still take Markelle Fultz? Do they take Lonzo Ball? They get their pick of the litter. But for the Lakers, you're going to get, a great point guard either way. So I think things are looking up for this team. They've still got a lot of work to do, especially on the other side, defensively, and potentially bringing in a big guy. But who knows? Lonzo Ball to the Lakers. Everyone's been talking about it. Obviously, LeVar. That's what they've wanted this whole time. Yep. So they will more than likely get their wish. We're going to have to wait until next month. I believe the draft is late June, if I'm not mistaken. So we have another month away.
Yes.
Combines are finishing up, and then there will be multiple private workouts with teams. It was funny. I was just reading this morning that apparently Lonzo Ball will only work out for the Lakers. He will not work out for any other team. Nick, what do you think about that?
I mean, it's been their plan the whole time. Not surprised. I think there's a joint between the two, I would say, organizations that's who they want to be with. Like Lonzo Ball wants to be with the Lakers. Obviously, his family wants him to be with the Lakers. They'd still be close from Chino Hills. That's not too far of a drive to Staples Center to watch games. And the Lakers, specifically Magic Johnson, want Lonzo Ball. And it's not like Lonzo is a bad player. Like I said, what we've been saying, he's top 2 pick. He may not be better than Fultz, but he could be better than Fultz. Like, they're pretty close as far as talent range, in my opinion. So I think it's solid. Both of them want each other. Lonzo doesn't want to play for anybody else, so I think it'd be almost a slap in the face to him if the Celtics did trade for someone or someone else wanted to play for him, because I think you could have, I don't know if this has ever happened in the NBA, but you could have an Eli Manning or a Joey Bosa situation where you didn't want to play for a team. I don't know if that's ever happened in the NBA, but I feel like that could be the one time it could happen is this case. Let's say let's say the Celtics want to trade that pick, that number 1 pick, and they trade to like, I'm just spitballing random team here, Charlotte Hornets. I know they have Kemba Walker, but let's say they wanted Lonzo Ball. Lonzo could Lonzo say no? Do you know if he could say I don't want to play for the Hornets? It's someone they need to trade me. Could he say that?
I could see. I don't know if I could see him doing that. I could see his dad doing that. I could see his dad facilitating something like that and getting into the spotlight and making a big deal out of it.
Which is what happened with Archie Manning and Eli Manning too.
Yes.
Yeah.
To be honest, I feel that Lonzo Ball just wants to play. I think obviously being from Southern California, being from LA, wanting to, stay in his hometown and play for the Lakers is a dream of his, and I'm sure he would love to do that. But if he were picked by another team, I don't think he would personally be the type of person that would, go out on a limb and say, I'm not playing for you guys. I think that would be more of his family and his dad specifically that would facilitate that.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. That makes a lot more sense. But I think it will all work out in the end. We saw some rumblings after the draft. We both got notifications on our phone that said that teams were looking at D'Angelo Russell. The Lakers essentially kind of put him on the trade block. I feel like not 100%, but they put him on the trade block. So that makes it interesting. Maybe what potentially do you think they could just jump up to that number 1 pick now and just trade D. Russ and maybe get somebody else in the number 1 pick from the Celtics and then just make sure they get Lonzo Ball? I think 95% Lonzo Ball's coming to Lakers. I think
I do as well.
Yeah.
The thing is, and I've said this numerous times, when you're the number 1 pick, and even if you're, the top 2 or 3 picks in the draft, doesn't matter. Obviously, right now we're talking about basketball. It doesn't matter if it's football, baseball. I think you have to take best player available.
Oh yeah, definitely.
If you're reaching for a need at the number 1 overall pick, I think there's a problem. Now, obviously, for the Celtics, they have a good situation on their hands because they have Isaiah Thomas, and they don't necessarily need a point guard right now. Isaiah Thomas has been in the league for a few years now, so I think if you bring Fultz in, Fultz is so versatile that he can play the 2 as well. Isaiah Thomas can play the 2. He can come off screens in pick and rolls and stuff like that. So I think they're interchangeable, and you can bring both of them along. I think the only issue with this draft is I don't see a top forward or center that is worthy of being a top 3 pick. So if there was someone like that, like a Harry Giles from Duke, if he would have never injured his knee and had a solid year with Duke last year, I think he's really one of the most talented players in this draft and could have been a top 3 pick. So, but because I don't see any big guy or big man that is worthy of that pick, for the Celtics, you have to take best player available. So they're going to do their homework on both Lonzo Ball and Fultz. And, I personally think, along with you, that Fultz will go number 1. But, you have to pick best player available. And then once you get down into the later rounds, into the teens, and especially in the second round, that's when you really go for need. So, yeah, I think that the Lakers do get their man, Lonzo Ball. And really, I think it's a great situation because I actually don't think the Lakers trade D'Angelo Russell. And my opinion here is,
I agree. I don't think you have to.
I don't think you have to. I think what you do is, now everyone's saying, get Paul George, and yes, of course, I would like to have the star Paul George on this Lakers team, but let's just pump that break for a minute.
Yeah.
And let's go back to the draft
here. That takes
here.
a lot. That's going to take a lot to get Paul George.
It will. So let's say the Lakers get Lonzo Ball. He can be the point guard or the off guard, as with D'Angelo Russell, so they're both interchangeable as well. So let's just say you want Lonzo as the true point guard. Guess what? Then you put D'Angelo as the off guard.
Absolutely.
It takes a little bit of pressure off him, even though he is somewhat of a passer. Now he can play off. He can focus a little bit more on his jump shot. You have Brandon Ingram in his second year, who really came on at the end of last year, playing the small forward position. You have Julius Randle at the power forward. You have either Zubac at the 5. You still have Mozgov. I think the big guys are somewhat of a weakness for the Lakers, and I think that's something they can address in free agency and in the second round of this draft. But if you're the Lakers, I'm keeping D'Angelo. And then you still have Jordan Clarkson, who I think the Lakers got as a steal. They gave him 4 years, $50 million contract last offseason. I think he's great coming off the bench. He gives a great spark. Now he can give you some starter minutes and some some starts during the season if there's injuries that occur. But I like him coming off the bench more. So listen, I think that's a great start. I think this team is still 2 to 3 years away from really contending for a title. But I think this team is, they're young, they're going to be talented, and they're coming along.
No, I agree too. I think you could go either way. The Lakers, if there's some way they can get Paul George without giving up essentially the whole team for him, I think you go that route. Because if Paul George really wants to play for your team,
so then what would if you're the Pacers, what would you want in return for Paul George?
Well, see, the way trades have gone lately in the NBA, they're going to ask probably for Brandon Ingram because it's the same position.
Yeah, see, and if I'm the Lakers, I'm not giving him up. I'm not giving up Brandon Ingram.
I might as well just wait a year and try to sign him.
Exactly.
Since the guy likes your team anyways.
Yes.
So and that's what they would say. And it'd be interesting to see what this because Larry Bird's out as the Pacers. I forget, was he Pacers GM or he was like president of basketball operations or something like that? He was in a leadership role. So Larry Bird was kind of leading the helm, a lot like Magic Johnson's leading the helm for the Lakers. He's out, so it'd be interesting to see what this new guy does. But, yeah, I think they would – obviously, I think they'd probably ask for D'Angelo Russell or one of the guards they have. I think you'd kind of have to just try to grab a guard. Because both the guards for the Pacers are older guys, I wouldn't say in their prime anymore, and Jeff Teague and Monte Ellis. Jeff Teague maybe at the end of his prime, but Monte Ellis definitely out of his prime. They definitely need some guards. So maybe they just go after guards, not sure. But I think they definitely ask for at least 2 of the Lakers' top prospects, and that would be I'd be considering whoever they draft in the draft this year: D'Angelo Russell, Julius Randle, and Brandon Ingram. I think those are the 4 big guys for the Lakers that you'd be trading for. Wouldn't necessarily be Zubac or Clarkson or anybody like that. But yeah, I think other than that Pacers, I'm asking Brandon Ingram. If I can't get the Ingram, I'm asking maybe for 2 guards and maybe a draft pick, but I think the Lakers are done trading their draft picks. So for Lakers, I think unless they can kind of screw over the Pacers with a trade, which I doubt would happen, I think you just wait for Paul George and you deal with this year. You wait for him the next year. Your young guys improve, and then maybe you have a package deal with Paul George and somebody else coming over. I don't know what the free agent class is, but you get somebody else to come over with Paul, and maybe Russell Westbrook. Another guy. You never know.
Oh, that's a reach.
Yeah, well, it's a reach, but he is from L.A., grew up in L.A., and I believe his contract would be up after that year, too. So you never know. I'm just saying Russell Westbrook gets sick of never making it to the finals in Oklahoma City. Maybe he comes to the Lakers and tries to do it in L.A.
He definitely needs some help, that's for sure.
Yeah, definitely. So very interesting, but good for the Lakers. So I wanted to talk a little bit about the rest of the draft order as far as like the New York Knicks still in the number 8 position, not a very good draft pick, and it doesn't. I'm just looking at some of these mock drafts here, and you're going to get a pretty good player, but it kind of sucks that they don't suck enough every year to get a good pick, at least for their fan base.
Honestly, you would think that the number 8 overall pick in a draft would be fantastic. If this is the NFL, yes. Basketball, with this draft in particular, you have the really, number 1 and number 2 picks who were the superstars of the draft, and then everyone else.
It's a bunch of forwards. It's like Jason Tatum, Josh Jackson.
Yeah, Jason Tatum, I think, would be a fantastic player, and I think he's actually one of the most pro-ready prospects. His game is pro-ready, where, his defense is on point. He's lengthy enough to where he can really guard anyone from a point guard all the way to a power forward. And offensively, his shot really came on towards the end of the year with Duke. He's got a post-up game. He can really do everything offensively. Bless you.
Thank you.
Yeah,
so I heard that. So I just sneezed.
But no, for the Knicks right now, I think they need to get a guard. It's looking more like they're going to lose Derrick Rose.
They kind of need everything, don't they?
They do need a little bit of everything.
They might even lose Porzingis. So you never know.
Oh, jeez. Right now, I'm looking at Dennis Smith, the North Carolina State freshman guard. He's a straight scorer. Now, defensively, I'm not sure how much he's going to be able to give you, but he can put up points. And it's looking obviously more and more likely that Carmelo Anthony will not be there. That isn't confirmed yet. But if he does, if he gives up his no trade clause,
here's the thing. Carmelo Anthony leaving the Knicks is almost as sure as Lonzo Ball coming to Lakers. I'll compare the two.
Okay.
Like, it's if Lonzo Ball doesn't go to the Lakers, then there's that off chance that Carmelo stays with the Knicks and they hate him. It's like it wouldn't make a lot of sense and it would piss off a lot of people. So
True.
I think Carmelo's out. But what were you continuing? Sorry about that.
No, I was just going to say that Dennis Smith, he really can score from anywhere.
Yeah.
He's a true, he's also one of those other hybrid guys. I think that's with his draft that I think is so interesting, and there's a lot of guys that can play multiple positions.
Yeah.
Obviously, Markelle Fultz is really a true point guard, but he can play the off guard as well. Lonzo Ball can play the 1 and the 2. Jason Tatum, he can bring the ball up like a point guard, but then he can guard your power forward. There's so many guys in this draft that do multiple things very well. So I think even though you're not getting maybe that elite prospect at number 8 for the Knicks, or if you're the Dallas Mavericks or the Sacramento Kings at 9 and 10, you're still getting a solid player that can do multiple things.
Yeah.
So maybe once they get into your system, you hone in on a certain thing, you develop them, and then in a year or 2 years, this draft class can really turn out to be something special.
Yeah, I think this. Yeah, you're right. This is one of those draft classes that could go very positively, whereas there's a lot of guards and forwards that they have promise, but they don't have as much promise as like a Ben Simmons or someone like that. There's a lot of these guys that are on the cusp, or a lot of them could flop, and maybe they played well because they were with Kentucky and Kansas with a lot of other stars that made them look better. And even Lonzo Ball, you never know, he could just be, he might have been on UCLA, and maybe those guys helped him out too. So you never know with that. I think that the one sure thing in this draft, as far as like a guy that really proved that he could do it by himself, is Fultz, and I think that's why he's probably said to be the number 1 pick. Other than that, a lot of these other guys played on really good teams, so you don't necessarily 100% know, besides Dennis Smith Jr. and the guy I'm about to bring up in a second, how really good they are with a bad team, because they're going to go to bad teams. Now, I want to say, so as far as the Knicks go, I like this guy, Frank Ntilikina from France. He's 18, one of those guys that didn't necessarily go to high school. I don't believe he's from the United States. I believe he's from France, but he's younger, so you're getting the youngest player in the draft. But, hey, one European guy worked out for you as far as for the last couple of years. Why not draft another guy? Why not take one of the, why not take a guy that's super young, you can really develop him, you're in full rebuild mode, and bring another European guy over that knows the European style of basketball with Kristaps Porzingis, and bring him over. Ntilikina is supposed to be the around 9th, 8th pick, which the Knicks have the 8th pick. So I think that'd be an interesting pick for him. Also, interesting note, the Knicks actually could have got the 7th pick, but hear me out. They came back in the 4th quarter of the last game of the season, then went into overtime and won, and then tied the Timberwolves with the pick because, for no reason they won that last game, and then they lost the 7th pick in a coin flip.
Oh, my gosh.
So let's say they get someone stolen, at the 7th pick from them, they can just blame themselves.
Yeah.
Because you got a tank.
It's almost just like the Lakers.
So the Lakers
luckily,
5 in a row that one. Yeah.
Yes, almost screwing themselves over, and winning.
Tank.
Yes. Oh, man. Wow. You know what? For the Knicks, it just went from bad to worse.
It's going to get worse. They're going to lose their best player, and they might lose Porzingis if he hates the organization, too. Another note real quick. You mentioned the big guys in the draft. So far, all I've seen is Lauri Markkanen from Arizona, big forward. Really liked him during the season. Zach Collins,
Gonzaga.
He wasn't. He obviously Karnowski, the way bigger guy. Collins was the slimmer, taller guy. He from Gonzaga, another freshman. And then let's see, who's
got Jonathan Isaac from Florida State.
Yeah,
big 7-footer.
Justin Patton, the freshman from Creighton.
Yes.
So not the most notable big guys, but those are the big guys you can get. I think Markkanen for me is the best guy out of all those.
Yes, and like I mentioned, Harry Giles, who really would have been a top 5 pick if he would not have injured his knees. So for him, it's really going to be about the medical and what teams.
And we've seen guys come back from that.
If teams are comfortable with taking him, really high, because talent-wise, he has all the skill in the world. It's just whether that knee comes back to full strength and he can be one of those players. So, this is really a draft for the guards and the small forwards. And then I think you're going to see some of the bigger guys fall as the draft goes on a little bit in the later portion of the rounds. Yeah,
for comparing it, I remember there was a lot of really good DBs in the NFL draft.
Yes.
This is where if you need a guard or a forward and you're in the lottery, you're going to get a solid player. It's not like there's 5 good players and then everybody else is a reach. Like we were saying, there is a lot of guys that have a lot of potential in these first couple of 10, 11 picks. So you're going to get a good guard or forward if you're in the top 10 in lottery. So it should be interesting. Let's take a quick break, and then we'll come back and we will talk about the Pachulia incident.
Oh, boy.
With Kawhi Leonard Zaza Pachulia. We'll both give our opinions because I know we have a little differing opinions on this. So it should be a good debate. But we'll be right back on the Cover 2 podcast just in about 5-6 minutes.
Leonard fires from the corner. And Leonard goes down again. And he's in pain again in front of the Spurs bench.
We're playing very possibly the best team in the league. We don't know what's going to happen in the East. And 9.75 people out of 10 would figure the Warriors will beat the Spurs. Well, we've had a pretty damn good season. We've played fairly well in the playoffs. I think we're getting better. And we're up 23 points in the third quarter against Golden State. And Kawhi goes down like that. And you want to know if our chances are less, and you want to know how we feel, that's how we feel.
Welcome back to the Cover 2 podcast. After that short little break, Nick and I are going to continue our NBA talk with a little NBA playoffs talk, a little potential dirty play. Nick doesn't really seem to think so. I might have a little bit different opinion. For those of you who are under a rock and who do not know about these playoff games specifically between the Warriors and the San Antonio Spurs, Zaza, I don't know why I said Zaza. Zaza. He was a little
Isn't there
Zaya.
a singer that's named Zaya?
Maybe. I don't even know where that came from.
Yeah,
just out of sync. Zaza and Kawhi Leonard had a little incident, a little running into, if you should say.
It wasn't an incident.
Okay, a little running into, to where Kawhi actually injured his ankle in the series before against the Houston Rockets and was obviously not 100%, still a little ginger. But, when you're getting later and later into these finals, you deal with injuries. Zaza came under, I did it again. He did. Yes. Came under a bunch of scrutiny for pretty much running underneath Kawhi and re-injuring his ankle. Many are saying that this was done on purpose. I'm on the fence about it. I'm going to let Nick go first,
okay,
because I know he has more of a definitive answer.
Yes,
and then I will back, what he says.
Here's my answer. Okay, I don't think it was a dirty play one bit. I know a lot of people think that it wasn't a dirty play. He wasn't even looking at Kawhi Leonard. How could you say? How could a big man? I know people have said, "Oh, he's kind of dirty. He's been dirty." No, he hasn't. There was like one game against the Spurs in the past where it was a tough game. People get mad one game, and he kind of was doing a couple plays that would you consider dirty. I've seen DeAndre Jordan elbow people in a game before. That doesn't mean he's a dirty player. I've seen, Chris Paul grab a guy's nuts before. That it doesn't mean he's a dirty player. It means maybe one game he got pissed at a guy and overreacted. This is just Kawhi Leonard. I think had brittle ankles anyways before he'd already hurt his ankle 2 plays before. So I think it was like his ankle was already running on low fuel. I'll say that. And then he just he lands a little bit wrong. Pachulia's foot is there, and he hurts it again. I don't think Pachulia meant to do it all. I think just the pure fact that he wasn't looking at Kawhi Leonard and he was looking back at the shot. How could you know to place your foot exactly where he's going to land if you're not looking? What is he, a magician? I don't understand it, and it just I think the media is trying to just find a way to blame someone for the Kawhi injury because they don't want to say, in my opinion, I think his ankle is not well enough to play right now. And I think he definitely needed these days off, and I don't think he should have played necessarily that game one. And I think that's what people want to avoid saying, is that Kawhi may not be as tough as we think he is. And I don't want to say he's not tough. I just think his ankle was injured. That's why he didn't play in Game 6. That's why he didn't play in one of the biggest playoff games of the entire year this year, that Game 6 against Houston. Now, the Spurs ended up winning, but I still think, not too long of a rest before the next game against Golden State, and his ankles weren't ready to play. And that's why he landed on a teammate's foot 2 plays before, hurt his ankle was already brittle, simply landed on Pachulia's foot. It wasn't a dirty play. Pachulia not once reacted or even looked back at Kawhi after it happened either. So my thing is, he's not looking at him. He's just playing. He's complaining about the call after that he didn't foul him. He didn't even think he touched him. how could it be a dirty play if really it didn't even look like he tried to do it at all? That's all I'm saying. You're looking the other way, and you're a big center too. How do you know where your feet are going to end up? That's all I'm going to say about it. I'll let you talk, maybe educate me a little more on the other side.
No, first of all, I don't think this has anything to do with toughness and for the media trying to spin this and make a story. I think the reason why they're doing that is because everyone and their mother knows that the only chance the Spurs have of winning is if Kawhi's on the court.
I want to say this real quick. I don't mean that Kawhi's not tough. I just think his ankle was just brittle. I think it was going to happen on really any tough play where your ankle ends up, your foot ends up landing a little bit wrong, and in that case, it just ended up on 2 straight plays. That's why he ran off immediately. He knew. So I just want to say I wasn't trying to say that Kawhi wasn't tough. I was just saying that I think maybe I was trying to say that his ankle wasn't tough in that one scenario.
Yes.
His ankle was brittle. But go ahead, you make a good point.
Yeah, no, like without Kawhi in the lineup, the Warriors will more than likely go for another sweep. Going back to the actual play, I'm on the fence because I get everything that you just said, and I agree with everything that you just said. As a former athlete, I'm not accusing Pachulia of doing this at all. I'm just saying, as a former athlete, especially in the pros, you have scouting reports. You know if a certain guy is playing injured, especially in the playoffs, right? And especially if Kawhi's status. This isn't a guy coming off the bench who plays 2 minutes a game and doesn't really matter. This is Kawhi Leonard, top 3 player in the NBA.
Absolutely.
You know that he has an ankle injury. So I'm not saying he, intentionally did this, but maybe you close out on him a little harder. Maybe you guard him a little tougher. Maybe you make him work a little bit harder because you know he has an injury.
Yeah.
In football, when I played football, I played cornerback. I played on defense. If I knew a receiver had a hurt shoulder or a bum knee or something like that, I'm not saying I'm going to literally go at that injury, but if I'm going to play bump press coverage and I'm going to force him to work harder.
You're going to hit him in the shoulder, right?
You're going to hit him in the shoulder.
Yeah, of course.
It's one of those things to where, so I don't think he intentionally meant to hurt him, but it's like if I know that a guy is not 100%, but yet he's still willing to go out and play, I'm going to test him.
Yes.
I'm going to see what he can do, right? So I think that's all that was. I agree with you. I don't think he meant to do it on purpose. The NBA is right for not suspending him because he should not have been. There shouldn't be a fine or anything like that.
Nothing. It wasn't even, it was just
but
a normal foul call.
It's competitiveness, right? It's just one of the things. If I'm injured and I choose to go out and play, I would almost expect that the other team is going to do the same thing. Now, if the other team wants to come out and throw some cheap shots and throw some blows, that's a different story. But if I would expect the other team to come out and test me right off the bat, see how my ankle or how my shoulder or whatever it is that I'm dealing with, how is that doing? How am I going to hold up, right? Because I think it's just, I don't know. That's just, I don't know if it's a certain mentality that players, competitors have. I'm not sure. So, like I said, I think it's just, it was one of those freak incidents that happened. It sucks for Kawhi. It sucks for the Spurs. But really, I don't think there's anything wrong with the play. Even if Kawhi would have been 100% before, he could have still easily
hurt his ankle.
It still would have hurt his ankle,
yeah.
regardless.
Yeah.
So, no, this was unfortunate, and it's unfortunate not only for the Spurs but for this whole series and for basketball as a whole because the playoffs this year, with the exception of the Game 7 series with the Celtics and the Wizards, really the NBA playoffs haven't been.
They sucked.
Yeah, they have. It's been a subpar year at best.
Clippers and Jazz too.
I was really looking forward to this series because even though I was going to pick the Warriors to win anyway, I do really think the Spurs could have given them a good fight. Given at least 6 games. But with Kawhi out, now I will say the Warriors and the Spurs played last night on Tuesday night. We are doing this podcast live on Wednesday morning if you're listening. Yeah. So the next game will not be until Saturday, if I'm not mistaken. Yes, so there will be 4 days off for both teams to rest, and especially for Kawhi.
Yeah, 3 days off.
Okay, 3 days now. So who knows? Maybe Kawhi can get that ankle somewhat healthy. I mean, there's no way he's going to be 100%, but maybe he gets it to 80%, 85%, and he can go out there and play because that is the only chance. Let me repeat that.
Yeah.
Only
Might
chance.
as well just sit out for the rest of the series if you're not going to play Game 3.
No, seriously. Seriously.
Yeah, if you're going to, you have to play.
It's going to be a rout just like it was in Game 2. I'm probably not even going to watch the rest of this series. I'm just going to tune into the Celtics-Cavs series, which could.
Yeah,
I don't think that's going to be.
If Kawhi's not playing, I'm not watching the series.
No,
I'm
just going to continue to watch hockey and
Still,
baseball.
The hockey playoffs have been way better than the NBA.
It has. So, like I said, it's an unfortunate injury, but really, no harm, no foul, in my opinion. And yeah, it's sucks.
Well, no, and see, I like that you compared it and you said you see it's kind of the blood in the water thing, the shark thing, where you see blood in the water, you're going to attack a little harder.
Yeah.
I do believe that you saw Kawhi. I think if this would have happened at maybe the very beginning of the game or maybe a little late in the game, say the Spurs were kicking their ass too. The Spurs were
Spurs had a 25-point lead.
Yeah. So they I think if maybe it's a blowout and then you see Pachulia go over there and do it, maybe you're like, okay, what are you doing, man? It's late in the game. Why are you still playing that hard on Kawhi? I think, though, possibly, and I agree with you on this. You talked about you being a DB and maybe roughing up a guy's shoulder. I think maybe they saw Kawhi hurt his ankle and were like, let's guard him harder and really press him.
Yeah.
Not knowing that you're going to land at his feet. That's why I don't think you can say it's a dirty play. Maybe Zaza meant to go harder at Kawhi, but he didn't mean to have his foot land and have Kawhi land on it so he hurt his ankle and then is out for the series. I think they smell blood in the water, and I think maybe Mike Brown or the rest of the Warriors players, maybe someone like Draymond went, hey, let's really close out on Kawhi harder and really make him every play for him matter in a way where he's not going to take a play off. So I could totally see Zaza going over there and playing him harder. I just don't think there's people saying it's a dirty play. It's a dirty player. He's trying to end the guy's career. It's just not true. He's not trying to do that. He's maybe playing a little harder on that specific play because he just did hurt his ankle. I think if it happens earlier in the game, like way earlier in the game or later in the game, I think maybe you could say, okay, maybe they were trying to go out there and hurt his ankle. I think on that specific play, though, I think they would just guard him harder. So I really like that you made that point.
You know, it was interesting. I was watching the pregame NBA countdown last night before the game, and Jalen Rose was on the show. He's a regular on the show. And he came out and had an interesting statement.
Okay, I did not hear this. So
yes, so he said back in, I believe it was it 2000? It was the first, I believe it was 2000 when Shaq and Kobe were with the Lakers, and it was their first championship run when they were playing Indiana in the finals.
That was the first of their three.
Jalen, there was a similar play where Jalen Rose was guarding Kobe. Kobe went back for like somewhat of a fadeaway shot, and Jalen Rose admitted that he purposely went underneath Kobe, and it's when Kobe came down and hurt his ankle.
I actually did.
You remember that?
Yeah.
Yeah, so Jalen Rose came out and admitted that he did that on purpose. And then it was funny because he said, karma came back to bite him a few years later when Kobe had that 81-point game.
Yeah, exactly.
So Jalen was like, you know what? Kobe came back and got me. But it's funny that Jalen would come out and purposely and admit that.
It's interesting. But it was a different time.
It was a different time in a different era.
Barkley was still playing, wasn't he, in 2000?
I think he might have been. But it was a more physical game. It was a little different.
It was a different time. I mean, the foul calls nowadays in the NBA are kind of ridiculous compared to back then. I mean, that would be every play to be calling a foul back then. So I think it was rougher play. There was more rugged guys. You had guys like Ron Artest, Steven Jackson in their prime of their careers, or coming up on their careers and stuff. So I think that's a little different time. It does add to the argument if Jalen's saying that he was doing that on purpose. I think it does add to the argument that maybe Zaza did do it on purpose. But I think you just look at the best. But Jalen Rose, if I'm not mistaken, he wasn't like the best. He wasn't like the model citizen on the court either. He
was a trash talker.
He was a trash talker. So he's not like that guy that's just sitting there like Kawhi. I would say is pretty model citizen on the court. Doesn't say much.
True.
Doesn't talk trash. Just kind of plays. I wouldn't say Jalen Rose was that. But besides these couple videos I'm seeing of him against the Spurs and just stupid little things that happen in every NBA game, I don't think Zaza has been a dirty player really ever in his career. So I think it's hard to paint a guy like that and say he's dirty if it's one play and it really is like on the cusp of saying that he did it on purpose. So that's all I'm saying. I'm kind of trying to get the blame off Zaza in a way. I don't think I think maybe the defensive strategy was to press Kawhi harder on that play. But I'm saying, I mean, and it's these top media guys too, like Colin Cowherd coming out and saying it. Come on, man. Like, what you're saying is partly untrue when you're saying that this guy's dirty and it's a dirty play and all this stuff. I don't know. I think the media tries to prop it up, like you said, because this series seems like it was already over after that play happened. So, I don't know. Interesting as far as this whole thing. It's definitely got us to have a discussion today about it.
Oh, yeah,
so,
we did.
Definitely is on the mind of a lot of people. Let's transition to the Celtics. And let's talk about Game 7. And then we'll do a break and we'll give our predictions for the Cavs and Celtics. Because I gave it away. Celtics did win Game 7 if you didn't see it. But a very good game, as expected. That series was as even as it got, and it just seemed like the Celtics wanted it more in the fourth quarter. John Wall missed 9 straight shots. Bradley Beal played off his rocker in that fourth quarter, and really the whole game. He didn't have his 3 going down in that game. I believe he was like 1 from 8 from 3, but he didn't have his 3 going down, and he still scored 33 points just shooting mid-range. And that's a sign of a good player, too. When you got a player that knows his 3's not hitting, he can still score 30 points mid-range and get into the free throw line. Very solid for Bradley Beal. Really like that from him. But it just seemed like the Celtics had that one guy in Kelly Olynyk really come out and play well.
Where did he come from?
Yeah, exactly. And it just seemed like they wanted it more in the fourth quarter. It was a Game 7. Celtics won. I wouldn't say the Celtics are a better team than the Wizards or are obviously should be in the Eastern Conference Final. I just think it came down to who wanted it more. Celtics got it.
It did. There's 2 things in my opinion. One, even going back to the regular season between these 2 teams, the Wizards and the Celtics, the home team won every game. So for some reason, the away team just couldn't get it done. And number 2, I think the Celtics bench came through more than the Wizards bench. When the Wizards starting 5 was on the floor, I believe they were plus 66 in their point differential. And when the Wizards bench was on the floor, they were like negative 70.
Yeah, so it came down to a bad game for the Wizards as far in some areas.
Yeah, the Wizards defense. And listen, like you mentioned, Bradley Beal dropped 38. John Wall, he disappeared in the second half.
He had 9 missed shots at the end.
That was a little disappointing because for the most of the series, John Wall was very, very impressive.
I think that's what ended up losing them the game.
And I think it was as well. Bradley Beal was, trying to carry the team, but he could only do so much. John Wall needed to step up and have somewhat of a better game. Otto Porter dropped 20. Morris put in another 18. So, it was, and then you look at the bench play, and this is pretty staggering. It's saying that they only got...
How many players did they play? Significant minutes in that game.
Significant minutes.
Off the bench.
7.
Yeah. I think that was
they
another...
They had 5 bench points.
See? Like, that's what's going to lose you a game. I blame that on Scott Brooks. You can't be having only 7 guys playing the game and have the bench score 5 points. It's ridiculous. Because then that's what... See, and you compare a little bit to that last game where Russell Westbrook kind of ran out of gas and missed a bunch of shots at the end and was taking some crazy shots. I think that may have happened with John Wall. He'd really been giving it his all this playoffs. I thought this was his best playoffs ever as a player. I think he really turned the corner. Maybe he ran out of gas possibly because they didn't use the bench enough. So it's very interesting. It's only 7 guys, came off because I know their only backup is Trey Burke, but give the guy like 8 minutes in the game and just get John Wall off the court for a little bit.
Yeah, compared to the Celtics bench.
Did Trey Burke even play at all in that game?
No, he was out.
He was out? Okay, my bad.
Yeah, the coach's decision.
Gotcha.
So then compared to the Celtics bench.
Literally no point guard to play for.
Where you have Jaylen Brown, he played 20 minutes. Olynyk, obviously, who went off, he played 28 minutes. Marcus Smart had played 30 minutes. And from Olynyk, you had 26 points. Marcus Smart added 13. Jaylen Brown added 9. So to me, the Celtics bench is really what won them this series. And I was a little disappointed because I feel that the Wizards team as a whole had a better chance to compete against the Cavaliers. And that was my thinking going into it. But looking as this series went on, I'm like, all right, where's the Wizards bench at? Because you're gonna need your full arsenal to beat Cleveland and to get to the finals. Now, obviously, we all know that Cleveland's more than likely going to make it to the finals, regardless of who they're playing. But it just right now, it seems like the Celtics bench is firing on all cylinders, and it seems like they're going to be able to give them a tougher matchup. Now, the Celtics starting five, I don't see. I think the Wizards starting five would have had a better chance against the Cavs starting five at least. So we'll see. Isaiah Thomas is going to really have to go off. Another interesting thing about the series that I want to talk about is Cleveland has had a lot of rest.
Yep.
Now, do you think that will help them, or do you think that's going to hurt them because they've had almost that? Now, is there a thing as too much rest?
I don't know. We'll take a quick break though.
Okay.
Real quick, I'll give you my answer on the other side of the break. So we'll be
Tease.
right back. A little 4-minute break here. Right back on the Cover 2 podcast with my answers to that question.
The third pick in this year's draft goes to the Philadelphia 76ers. The second pick will be made by the Los Angeles Lakers. And that means that the number one pick in the 2000 NBA draft goes to the Boston Celtics.
We've been focused this whole week. You know, we got a couple of days off, Monday and Tuesday after we clinched versus Toronto, but since then we've been putting in work, and mentally and physically. So, you know, as far as our mental side, I'm not worried about that. It's always like the rhythm. You know, we've been off. It'll be 10 days tomorrow, you know, since we played a game. The rhythm is something that you kind of like, you know, see if we still have it. But as far as the mental side, we're focused.
Cover 2 podcast. We are back from that short break. Now, Jared, what did you ask me before we went to break?
I said, do you believe that rest will be a factor for the Cavaliers going into the series with the Celtics?
Yes, I do believe that the rest will affect them. I think this rest has been kind of ridiculous as far as how, do you know how many days they've actually been off? I don't really remember the last time the Cavs had a playoff game. That's how long it's been. I know it's been at least a week. And I'm going to blame the NBA on that for making them. If it's any longer than a week, that's ridiculous to wait, even if you do sweep. But otherwise, I'll let you come up with that number in a second. But I do believe no matter what, it will matter to them. Because I think the Celtics are coming off a really tough Game 7. I think they're going to have short rest before this next game, almost like a normal rest for another series of a game. And I think they'll come out and really want to punch Cavs in the mouth. How about this? I got Celtics winning Game 1
Really?
of this series. Yeah.
By
It's
the
tonight,
way,
too. It's tonight. If you're listening to the podcast live right now or on Wednesday, the game is tonight. If you're listening on some other day, you've already seen what happened, so my prediction might be wrong. But I'm going to go with Celtics winning Game 1 because I think that rest will affect the Cavs, just simply because it's been way too long. It's hard to play game shape, and this will obviously be the best team by far the Cavs have played in the playoffs. It would have been that with Washington or Boston. So, I think they grab Game 1, and I think they end up going 1-1 as far as being in Cleveland.
the Cavs have not played since Sunday, May 7th.
Wow.
It's been a week and a half. We're on May
10
17th.
days, even more to my point. That's 10 days. That's ridiculous. Come on, NBA. I mean, see, here's the thing. So the Ducks, Anaheim Ducks, they swept the Calgary Flames, and they had 7 days off. So why can't the NBA figure it out? Like, why can't they figure it out to make it? Why is it 10? I don't get it. Make it 7 or 6. You know, it makes sense because you gotta have the rest of the series end. But that doesn't even make logistical sense. Why the Boston Washington series would have gone that long past it too. So I don't understand. But that just goes to my point. I think Celtics grabbed game one just simply because of that fact. 10 days, that is a long time. What about you?
It is. I actually think
As far as just game one.
Just game one, no, I think the Cavaliers come in and get it done. And I think this is what we talked about last week. I believe it was the last podcast to where I mentioned that during the regular season, teams don't get a lot of time to practice. And it's just kind of like, all right, we're coming in for shooting sessions and you know, rehab and maintenance on the body and that type of thing. Yeah, 10 days is a long time.
I love how we've done 2 podcasts without them playing, though, too.
Yeah, no, seriously, yeah. And I do that 10 days is a long time. And I think that, you know, at a certain point, you need to get out there and play in a live game action. I understand that. But for this Cavaliers team, they're not the youngest team. They're a little bit older. Obviously, Kyrie's still young, but LeBron is a little bit longer in the tooth. Kevin Love's been there for a little while. So I think rest is a good thing for this team. And they've been able to actually practice, get in, 2-3 hours of solid practice time. So I think that's really going to help this team. I think the Celtics are going to be a little bit burnt out. It took a lot out of them to play this 7-game series against the Wizards. It was physical. They really had to fight till the very end. I mean, they won by 10, but it wasn't a blowout. So I think only having one true day of rest. I mean, now they get to stay home and they get home court advantage, which I think is key. If they had to start the series in Cleveland,
yeah, and that's
I think that would
that's
be
another
even
big
worse.
thing is that people are forgetting that the Cavs for once don't have home field advantage in an Eastern Conference. My bad. Home court advantage in a playoff series. It's not the finals.
Yes.
So that's another big deal where Boston's just sitting there and the Cavs, they got to take the flight over and all that stuff. Now, obviously, they're used to that, but I just think that it's just too long of rest. 10 days.
Okay.
You could take. They could have taken a freaking vacation and came back and still been able to not worry about it. So I don't know. I just think that time is too long.
I'm going the other way. Okay. I'm saying
no,
that Cleveland
totally.
will be.
You're right. The practice, we did talk about that. I just thought that series would end earlier. Washington. I just didn't
Well,
think
the thing is, because the Cavaliers swept, that series only went 4 games. So if they would have went 6 games or even 7, they would have only been like a day or 2 behind the Celtics and Wizards. Yeah. But because they swept so fast, they were awarded that extra time off. So for a lot of teams, for maybe a younger team like the Celtics or something like that, or like the Warriors maybe, I think it hurts you a little bit. But because the Cavaliers are a little bit older, I think the rest will help them. And I don't think it's going to be a blowout. I think the Celtics will keep it fairly close, at least for the first 3 quarters. But I think Cleveland's going to have a pretty good stranglehold, not only on the series, but in this first game as well.
Do you think the Celtics grab a game in Boston? I think they do. And actually, I'll even go further. I think they no matter what, grab a game in Boston. I think that home field advantage really gets them this year.
Home court.
So, my bad. Yeah, keep saying it. So used to baseball and football.
I know.
But I really do. I really do think that just because that home field advantage, even if they don't win game 1, I think they'll come back and win game 2.
I would give them a better chance of winning game 2. I think game 1, Cleveland is going to come out and just want to step on their throats and just really, say, hey, you guys are not well rested. You guys just came off a grueling series. We're going to come out and just run and punish you. And I think in game 2, the Celtics will have a little more grip, as far as, all right, this is what Cleveland wants to do in this series. This is how they're playing us. This is how we can adjust. I think in game 2, they'll have a little better adjustments and they'll be able to win. So I'm not saying they're going to, but if I had to pick a game for the Celtics to win, it would be game 2. Because going back to Cleveland, I don't see them winning a game in Cleveland. And then if it did go 5 games, I think Cleveland would come back to Boston for game 5 and end it. And I think that's how it could play out, because going to the Western Conference series with the Warriors, it's more likely either going to be a sweep or at best a 5-game series. So that would match up perfectly as well.
That's true with the dates.
They would each get equal time off, and I believe
Boston and Cleveland are going to play game 1 and game 2 before the Warriors and then play game 3.
Game 3, exactly,
and they'll line up perfectly.
Yes. So I think with the rest, Cleveland's not taking this lightly. LeBron will not let Cleveland take this lightly. I'm sure they took full advantage of the rest. They know all about Isaiah Thomas. That's another thing, is I think Cleveland's just got too much size and length. I don't think.
I agree with you on
listen,
that. Yeah.
When Al Horford is your center for the Celtics, and then you've got the Cavaliers over here
with on Al Horford.
I'm not hating on him. I'm just saying the size. You got.
No, you're right.
LeBron James can.
He's like 6'10".
LeBron
right?
can guard Al Horford, and then you've still got Tristan Thompson, Channing Frye, Kevin Love.
I wish they had Andrew Bogut. Right?
Yeah, you know what I mean. So I think the Cavaliers, their size is just gonna overpower the Celtics throughout this series.
Yeah, no, it definitely could happen. So let's continue. I'll give my prediction on the rest of the series. I do agree with you that I believe Cleveland will probably win both the games in their hometown if I had to bet. But here's my full prediction for the entire series. I think it's Cleveland in 6. I think Boston wins 2 out of the 3 games on their home court, and Cleveland just simply wins every single game in Cleveland to win the series. So I do believe if they were to go back to Game 5, I think the Celtics would actually win.
Really?
Barring, obviously, I'm barring any injury to really any player in the series. I'm going everyone's healthy. I'm not going any Kawhi situations here where anybody gets hurt. So obviously that would change it. But I think as far as this series, as far as Boston having the home field advantage, I really do think that the Cavs will win every single game in their home because they're just too good at home. And then Boston will win at least 2 out of 3 in their home. And if they were to somehow get back to Game 7, it'd be a different story. I don't think that's going to happen. I think Cleveland wins in 6. Mainly because I just think they'll get used to playing basketball, like you're saying. And I just think they'll just, because they're also going to be playing every other day. This is like a hockey playoff series. They're playing every other day. There is no 2-game breaks or anything in between the series. So once a team gets rolling, they're going to get rolling and they're going to win. And I think that's what's going to happen with Cleveland. And I think they win in 6. What about you? You're saying they win in 5?
I'm going in 5. I'll give the Celtics a Game 2 victory at home.
Okay.
So I pick Cleveland to win this game tonight. And then the Celtics win Game 2, and then Cleveland wins the rest. And they close it out in Boston to go to the finals against the Warriors.
Interesting. So then let's do, and then real quick predictions on just the Spurs and Warriors again. Obviously, we talked about it a little bit earlier. I don't know if I gave a prediction on it. I believe, and just like the Cavs and Celtics, I do believe this series could get to a Game 6 if Kawhi is playing. But again, that's tough. I'm going to go them in 5. I think they win the game on Saturday. The Spurs do, because I think Kawhi will be healthy. I believe they the Spurs lose a tough game to the Warriors, and then they lose another tough game in Game 5. I think all of these next few games will be tough games. Could go either way, which is why I could see it going 6. But I think if I had to bet, I'd go 5, Warriors in 5, and Celtics, and Cavs in 6.
I'm going sweep
Okay.
for the Warriors. Now, I don't think...
And you're basing that even if Kawhi comes back?
Even if
too?
Kawhi comes back.
Okay.
I don't think,
Very
especially with this second re-injury, because he re-injured his ankle, I really don't think he will be healthy enough to contribute enough to help the team win. Now, I don't think it's going to be a blowout like it was in Game 2. I think the Spurs being back home, they'll put up more of a fight. But in the end, I think the Warriors have too much firepower. Collectively, the Warriors team plays great defense together. I don't think they have a lot of great individual defensive players. I mean, you have Draymond, you have Andre Iguodala, but as a whole, as a defensive unit, I think this team plays very well together. So, I think it's going to be closer games. There won't be any blowouts. Golden State will be around the 110 mark, 105, 110 mark in points. And I think the Spurs are going to struggle to get to 100, even if Kawhi's in there, because I don't think he's going to be able to give you that, 36 to 40 minute range that you're used to getting from him. I think you're only going to be able to get 25, maybe solid minutes from him, because I think the ankle is going to be that much of a factor. So because of that, I'm picking the Warriors in a sweep. I'm picking Cleveland in 5 games, and we're going to have, for the 3rd straight year, a finals rematch of Warriors-Cavaliers.
And that'll be a fantastic series, too.
That will, I hope,
Yes.
be a great series, because if it is not, then this entire NBA playoffs was a joke. There needs to be some type of saving grace.
Yeah, that would kind of suck. That would suck.
Yes,
yeah.
there need to be some type of saving grace here.
Maybe we have, because I didn't necessarily think the NFL playoffs were outstanding either, but then that's in the whole entire season, and then the Super Bowl was like the best game of all time.
Yeah, well, I mean, you have the Cowboy-Packer game, unfortunately, which I don't want to bring up again.
True.
But
no, good point. No,
know,
more of the regular season wasn't that good.
Yeah.
But then they redid it, at least for me, with that Super Bowl.
True.
Same with baseball. Baseball helped me get over the Dodgers losing to the Cubs by having that amazing Game 7. So hopefully we just have a great sports here. Hopefully they go 7 again, because they went 7 last time, and that was a great series. Hopefully they go 7 again.
I can see that happening.
And we'll see who wins. But that should be interesting. Real quick, I want to ask this question, just one more right before we end the NBA topic. Mark Cuban came out and actually said, because we were just talking about tanking and all that stuff, that he said that the Mavericks, when they were out of playoff contention, tanked. He just straight up said it.
Yeah.
So that's if I'm saying to the other teams, tank. I'm talking to you, Knicks, and it's not because you're my name. It's because you guys just. It's James Dolan. It's Phil Jackson. It's a mess over there. When you need to tank and you need draft picks and you need players, lose. Or at least put guys on the court that are probably not going to get you a win. You don't need to miss shots and do Boston College in the 80s and literally lose games. All you need to do is just put a roster out there that's not going to win the game. It's you don't literally tank by missing layups and all that. That hurts the integrity of the game. You just put a lineup out there that you don't think is going to win. So for the Lakers, who really affected a lot of fans and made a lot of Lakers fans think that we might not get that pick yesterday, and the Knicks fans that are getting the 8th pick in the draft when they weren't good at all, guys, lose. If Mark Cuban's going to do it, everybody can do it. So, no, teams need to do that more. Deal with it, or the NBA needs to change the rules so you don't do it. But
yeah, no, it's very simple. As a coach, you come out and say you want to see what your young guys can do. You want your young guys to get some playing time, and you're gonna rest your normal starters. It's as simple as that. I mean, if obviously your guys on the bench are on the bench for a reason, and they're not starters for a reason. So you want to give them more playing time. You want to give your young guys more playing time and see what they can do, for the following year. So it's as easy as that. I don't think anything more needs to be said. You don't even need to come out and say that you're tanking. Just that you want to give your other guys some experience. You're looking ahead for the following years. Are these guys going to be a part of our team, or do we want to go in a different direction? If they sit on the bench all year and they barely get any playing time, they only come in with 30 seconds left of a blowout game, they're not showing you anything.
No,
and they can only show you so much in practice. So you want to give them live game situations to really see what they can do. So simple as that.
Yeah, especially when you're not in the Lakers situation where you don't need to literally be in the top 3 to get a pick. Like the Knicks just, lose a couple more games and get to the 5 or 4. Like, you're going to get your draft pick. It's just where you're going to get it. So it was even easier for them we could win a little bit and we don't have to worry about losing our pick, but let's just get down to that 4 or 5 range. So very interesting that Mark Cuban would come out and say that. But it's one of the reasons I like Mark Cuban, because he comes out and just says stuff like that.
He's a mini Jerry Jones.
Exactly. Same city. Probably rub off on each other.
Yeah.
All right, so we'll be right back. And on the other side of the break, Jared, we're going to play Do You Care? I think the latest time we've done Do You Care as far as during the live podcast, almost at 11 o'clock, we're doing Do You Care?
Let's do it.
Let's do it. On the other side of the break, Do You Care?
Number 2, Derek Jeter. Number 2.
I was asked recently by someone, they said, if you could trade places with one person, who would it be? And I say this very humbly, but there isn't a person or player I would trade places with that's playing now or ever. And the reason why I say that is because I got a chance to play for a first-class organization and in front of the greatest fans in the history of sports.
I wanted to let you know that I'm going to be on the cover of Madden NFL 18. Now, I've heard there are some of you out there who might be worried about something called the Madden curse. There's no such things as curses. It's a total myth, okay? I feel like you're not really getting it. See? All good. No curse. All good.
When you look at Colin Kaepernick, you have to ask yourself this question. It's not so much does the coach want him or the GM wants him. Does the owner want him? And that's where the conversation goes. This is not just a done deal. Hey, we want to sign this guy. You're going to have a conversation with the owner as well.
Welcome back to the Cover 2 podcast. I'm Jared Smith.
I'm Nick Beanad.
And Nick, guess what it's time for?
It's time for Do You Care?
I love when Nick says that. I always have to let him do that.
It's like the theme. Whenever we come up with a theme for it, I won't say that.
Yeah.
As long as we don't have a theme, I'm doing that.
We got to roll with it.
I did The Rock last week, so I had to do.
You did. We'll keep it going. But on today's edition of Do You Care, we'll be throwing in a little NFL talk, some baseball talk. We're going to probably stick away from a lot of the basketball talk since we spent the whole first segment on that.
And we're going to talk about hockey in the next segment, too. So we're going to stay away from that.
So jump around a little bit. But let's get started. Nick, do you care that the Astros are 28-12 to start the year?
Yes, I do, because in my opinion, they're the best team in baseball right now. And their roster is really stacked, especially hitting-wise. When you got George Springer, Jose Altuve, Carlos Correa, Brian McCann in your lineup, that's already you're already a pretty good team then. But then they got guys like Alex Bregman who've played well. They're young shortstop / third baseman. They have Carlos Beltran as well at DH. Just a studly lineup. And Dallas Keuchel, in my opinion, has also been a top 5 pitcher this year. I saw something the other day that said that Dallas Keuchel has pitched so rarely high in the zone that when you look at a heat map on all of his pitches, there's literally nothing in the top of the zone. Like, let's say he's thrown 1,000 pitches this year already. He's thrown about 20 high in the zone. The guy's accuracy has been pinpoint this season. It's one of the reasons the Astros win. And to only lose 12 games after 40 games is rare in the MLB. And I think the Astros are on their way to win 100 games this year. They're really good this year.
That's you, man.
I forgot the way we played Do You Care for a second. So,
it's okay. You're so excited.
I'm very excited. I'm very excited about the Astros. Jared, do you care that LeGarrette Blount is headed to the Philadelphia Eagles?
I do care because he led the league in rushing last year, so I don't necessarily think, and Nick is doing the Eagles fly right now. I'm about to sock him in the face. It's interesting because
he behind that little thing.
Yeah,
right there.
yeah. I'm kind of I can't go anywhere right now. It's interesting because last year Blount led the NFL in rushing touchdowns. Now I don't see him being a threat as like an every down back. He's not going to gash you for 120, 150 yards and 2 touchdowns every game. But when you get in the red zone and when you're down in the goal line, he's a bruiser and he's the guy that can score easily. So the last running back to leave their team after leading the NFL in rushing the year before was DeMarco Murray in 2014-15 when he left the Cowboys and went to Philadelphia, ended up having a really crappy year. So I'm hoping the same thing can happen for Blount, where he had a really great year last year with the Patriots, won a Super Bowl, and he comes to this Eagle team.
Yeah, all bias aside, of course, right?
All bias aside, of course.
Yeah.
I would never. Come on. Yeah. I'm a stand-up gentleman. But no, it's this Eagles team. I really don't know. I think it's going to help Wentz, but they still have Ryan Matthews. They still have Darren Sproles. So I'm not sure, what kind of role is Blount going to play. I mean, when you bring him in the game, you pretty much know that it's probably going to be a run. When you bring in Sproles, they can throw it to him out of the backfield. Blunt's not really that type of guy that catches the ball. So at least I think, for the rest of the NFC East and the teams that are playing the Eagles this year, you kind of will know when Blunt's in the game. They're probably going to run it towards him. So I'm hoping the Cowboys are in the weight room getting bulked up because they're going to need it because Blount is a big, big boy. Nick, do you care that RG3 and Kaepernick are potential backup options for the Seattle Seahawks?
No, although I do pay attention a lot to Seattle because I am an Arizona Cardinals fan. But I don't see it happening. First of all, I don't see the reason why Kaepernick or RG3 would help out Seattle. I think they already have Trevon Boykin. Passed or as the backup for Russell Wilson. I think Trevon Boykin is a very solid backup quarterback, and I think they're grooming him slowly to become either a good backup so they could use him as trade bait or a guy that potentially fills in for RG3 if he gets injured or if Russell Wilson were to ever leave, you have another guy. So I don't see the reason. Plus, the baggage these two bring to your team. No reason to do that if you're Seattle. As a fan of the Cardinals, I hope they do it. Jared, do you care that Beth Mowins is going to announce a Monday Night Football game?
I do care. I think it's fantastic. I think it's going to be great for the sport. So just for people who don't know, for the start of the NFL season, they've been doing it for years and years now. There is always a Monday night doubleheader.
Yes.
So there's usually the first game is typically on the East Coast, and then the second later game, which usually starts around 7:30 Pacific time, is typically on the West Coast. And this year, it will be Rex Ryan, who is paired with Beth Mowins. She has, for the last few years, been calling the Oakland Raiders preseason games. So she has, a lot of experience with the NFL already, and she's had multiple other sideline roles in the NFL. So it's actually interesting. The only other woman to ever call an NFL regular season or postseason game was back in 1987. It was Gail Sirens. So Mowens will only be the second woman ever to call either a regular season or postseason game. So I think it's great for the sport. Obviously, you see a lot of female, sideline reporters and female hosts for specific shows. But to have a female calling a game play-by-play, I think is fantastic for the sport, and it's only going to open doors for more females to get into that role. All right, Nick, last question for you, and I purposely left this one for the last. Do you care that the captain, Mr. Derek Jeter, had his number 2 jersey retired on Sunday?
I do care because it's very interesting, and a lot of people don't know this. Now, if you're a Yankees player, you cannot wear a single digit anymore. That Derek Jeter was the last player to fill in the single digit of number 2 on the Monument Park in New York. Derek Jeter, consummate pro, one of the best of all time. Obviously, led the Yankees to numerous World Series appearances and 5 World Series championships. Like I mentioned, one of the best players of all time. Definitely deserved it. Class act guy on and off the field. He had a great speech too, and he went up into the ESPN booth and said he winged it. So the guy just he's a great guy. He also created the Players Tribune, which now we hear about a lot. Kevin Durant used that to announce that he was going to the Warriors. Many other players tell great stories on the Players Tribune that Derek Jeter literally created. So he's a great guy. Definitely deserved the plaque in Monument Park. And sure enough, I kind of forget the year he retired, but sure enough, he'll be in Cooperstown and have another plaque for him at the Cooperstown Hall of Fame. But great for Derek Jeter, all-time pro. Jared, last question. Do you care that Tom Brady is going to grace the cover of Madden 18?
I don't care. I think it's appropriate. I mean, Brady's obviously won 5 Super Bowls. Everyone's like, oh, he's going to get injured. And, well, Odell Beckham was on the cover in 2016, and he had close to 100 receptions, over 1,000 yards. I believe he had like 13 or 14 touchdowns.
Yeah, I don't really think the curse matters anymore.
I don't think it's that big of a deal. Obviously, Gronkowski was on the cover last year, and he was injured on and off throughout the year. So, I think it's one of those things to where, I think it's an honor for most players. But I think most players would really enjoy being on the cover. I know this year Madden was doing something a little different where they're having like a GOAT edition of the Madden series.
And that's not, explain what GOAT means to anybody that doesn't know what GOAT means.
Nick, why don't you take it?
It means greatest of all time. We're not talking literally about GOATs. We're talking about being the greatest of all time. So just anybody that didn't know that, we're not talking about animals. We're talking about football players.
This is a sports show. We don't really talk about animals on here. But no, I think it's good for him. I'm sure he's going to make some money from it. And listen, if he gets injured, no matter what it is, people are going to go back to this and say, oh, it's the curse. It's the curse. I don't want Tom Brady to get injured. But, if they just so happen to not make it to the Super Bowl, I'm going to be happy with that. So maybe that's the curse. Maybe because he's on it now, they get to the first round of the playoffs and they lose or something like that. I would be A-okay with that.
Once again, all bias aside with Jared saying that he doesn't want the Patriots to go to the Super Bowl. Once again, all bias aside.
All bias aside. I feel like I don't even have to say that. Because
people just should know that.
They should know by now that I'm a stand-up guy and that I don't always...
never do anything like that.
No. Even though I'm wearing my Cowboys shirt today... that doesn't mean anything.
No.
Not today.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So with that, we're going to end Do You Care with Jared with a nice and clean statement about the Patriots.
Thank you.
On the other side of the break, we're going to be giving you our opinions about the NHL playoffs, which I've enjoyed so far, specifically the Western and Eastern Conference Finals. We'll be right back on the Cover 2 podcast.
I mean, it just blows my mind. I mean, watching... I don't know what's going through his head over there, but like his family and his friends watching him play, I don't know how you cheer for a guy like that. I mean, it just doesn't make sense how he plays the game. So, I'm just trying to go there and play hockey, and it sucks when you gotta pull a stick out of your groin every shift.
What was your reaction, your initial reaction when you kind of heard the comments from Johansson?
I laughed. Got a lot of text messages from my friends and family saying they still cheer me on. So, that's he can say whatever he wants, though. I'm not going to change my game. I'm here for one reason and one reason only, and that's to win some games here and to ultimately win the series. So, he can say whatever he wants to say.
There's a chance for Bobby Ryan trying to pull away. Ryan by himself, he scores! What a rush, a breakaway goal for Bobby Ryan, and Ottawa wins Game 1 of the Eastern Conference Final 2-1.
Final segment of the day. This is going to be a good one, too. We're going to be talking about the NHL playoffs. And I've enjoyed the NHL playoffs so far. What about you, Jared?
Way more than the NBA playoffs.
Dude, and even the Western Conference
say.
Finals matchups have been fantastic. Sorry, the Conference Finals matchups have been fantastic, both of them. We'll start with the East because we have a lot more to talk about with the Ducks, and we want to end the podcast on that. But we'll talk with the East. Penguins and Senators, as of today, Wednesday, tied 1-1. So we want to talk about the first two games. I'll start off. Only 4 goals scored in this entire series. So obviously, goaltending and defense has been the big thing in this series. And I think what I want to say about this series is it kind of looks like right now, whichever goalie really starts kind of screwing up from now here on out, that's the team that's going to not win the series. So I think the goalie that plays the best is going to win this series, in my opinion. I think it could go either way right now. Although I really did think the Penguins were, the team to beat. The Senators have really surprised me with a lot of their younger players that have come up and played well since the last time they made the playoffs. Guys like Mark Stone, Kyle Turris. Obviously, you have all-star Erik Karlsson, and Bobby Ryan has really turned into one of the best players in the league. Jared, you remember Bobby Ryan on the Ducks.
I do.
Obviously, a very good player. Also brought the Ducks Jakob Silfverberg, too. 30-goal scorer and one of the best players in the playoffs today. So Bobby Ryan helping out both organizations with that trade. But back to the series. Big overtime goal in Pittsburgh in Game 1, really coming up clutch. And then Pittsburgh winning Game 2 on a goal by an angry Phil Kessel. But would you agree with me, Jared? Do you think it really will come down to goaltending? I mean, 4 goals scored in the entire series so far.
I think it is. I think this is a defensive battle. But speaking of defensive, the Penguins are getting just hammered by injuries.
I know. Yeah.
They've not only have they lost Chris Letang and then Trevor Daley, but in the last game, Justin Schultz went down with a shoulder injury.
Yeah.
So I was reading earlier, it looks like the 39-year-old Mark Street is going to be the replacement.
Yeah, Mark Streit.
39 years of age. So we'll see if he can, knock the rust off and get in there.
And I believe this is obviously the first game he's played in the entire playoffs, but I think it's the first time he's played in a very long time period. I don't think he played in the regular season for a long time, too. So he's coming in raw. I mean, a little younger because the Ducks with a little younger players have done that a lot where they just throw a guy in the lineup, even a debut, literally a team debut where they throw him in the playoffs. I think it's a little different for a 39-year-old. I think that might be tough.
I mean, yeah, he's got the experience, but 39-year-old, that's not, you're not in a 22-year-old body anymore. No, so exactly. It's, I think it's going to be a little different. So I'm actually, I know I'm jumping ahead a little bit, but I'm going to pick Ottawa in this game.
Okay.
Because I feel that
tonight we're recording the podcast obviously on Wednesday.
Because I feel that Pittsburgh is going to be too banged up defensively.
At Ottawa too.
At Ottawa, yes.
And do we know what's the on Schultz? How many days do they say? Is he day to day? I'm guessing day to day, but they probably say that in the playoffs anyways. I mean, the Ducks have said Kevin Bieksa was day to day for like 2 weeks now, so not sure. But I did not know going into this if Schultz was injured for a long time, too. That might affect the whole series as well. I had paid less attention to this series.
It says he's day-to-day.
Okay, yeah, so you could be getting Schultz back any day, but it's like we talked about earlier. Hockey, back, you go 1 game, day off, 1 game, day off, 1 game. So it's not like you can kind of get those extra days. That's rare. That only happens in the NBA most of the time. So that will be interesting. I'm going to go with Pittsburgh winning Game 3, but I think they split in Ottawa. I think Pittsburgh will come out, and because of that, offensively, they'll really try to put the pressure on the goalie, and Pittsburgh, in my opinion, is one of the best 3 teams in the entire league offensively. Obviously, you have Malkin, Crosby, Chris Kunitz, Phil Kessel. It's amazing that those 4 guys are on a team, period, let alone on a power play as well. But so I think Pittsburgh will grab and surprise the Senators, but I think Senators will come back on Friday and win and split. And then again, that's where I think, because I did not know that about I forgot Mark Strait was playing in that game. That makes the series more interesting, but I still do think it comes down to really goaltending in this series, and so that's just what I'm gonna bank on that. I think it's gonna be goaltending that ends up being this series. Obviously, if one goaltender flubs, it won't matter what the defense does.
Yeah,
So.
no, I agree, and like I said, I don't see this series as being high scoring.
No.
Especially after watching the first two games. I think you're gonna have to win those scrappy 2-1, maybe 3-2 games, but really it's tough to score goals. It's gonna be hard-nosed defense, and they're gonna have to capitalize on opportunities when they come about.
Yeah.
If you're missing, on power plays, if you're not converting, and at least getting some shots on goal during power plays, I think it's gonna be too tough. So. I really do like Ottawa in this series. I definitely would not have said that at the beginning of the series.
Either. I know they've really impressed me.
But with Pittsburgh's injuries, it's getting tougher and tougher to see them winning this entire series.
Yeah, and they escaped by essentially playing Crosby with a concussion
Yes.
against the Capitals. I think if anything like that happens against the Senators, they're screwed.
True.
Because like you said, they've already missing 3 of their top defensemen. And then to lose really anybody else would be tough for them. So, no, I agree. We'll come down to injuries and goaltending. But 2 good goaltenders, Fleury and Anderson, they'll put on a show. So, should be fun to watch if you're a defensive-minded fan. Let's move on to a series that's definitely not as much defensive-minded, although both teams have great defensemen. This has been a great series so far. It is Predators and Ducks. Obviously, this is a hometown team for us. Living in Orange County, the Ducks. But so far, the series has gone back and forth and is in favor of the Predators as of today, Wednesday, 2-1. First game going into overtime. My thoughts on the first game were, and I'm going to bank on what Andrew Cogliano said after the game. Andrew Cogliano, a very well-spoken guy, he said that they did not go into that game feeling like it was the conference finals. They went into it essentially feeling like it was a regular season game. And that's the reason, he said that's the reason they lost. They didn't have the intensity. So I'll give them a pass on that game 1. Game 2, they came out 1-5-3, really just hit the hell out of Nashville. I mean, those were some of the biggest hits I've seen in the playoffs, period, and there was about 6 of them in that game, mostly from the Ducks. So, and then obviously you had the Johansson-Kessler thing, and we'll talk about that in a second too. So knockdown, drag down the game. Yesterday, though, the Ducks gave that game away. They were winning 1-0, and they gave up 2, goals that shouldn't have happened. It had to do with just defense and power plays and dumb penalties and stuff like that. But they really gave that game up in the third period. What do you think about the game yesterday? Because I know that's more fresh in our minds.
It is, and I actually have to give Gibson a lot of credit.
Outstanding game.
Pretty much
yesterday.
throughout this entire playoff so far, I've been just all over Gibson, saying that
to play Game 7.
No, I didn't.
agree with you too.
I didn't at all. But he so far in this series with Nashville, the first 2 games he gave up 3 goals. But this third game, at least for the first 2 periods, he was really spectacular. And even going into the first few minutes of the third, he was flat out spectacular. Now, I don't expect that you're going to shut out Nashville, so I understand that you might give up a goal. But I think he played very, very well. If he can play like that for the rest of this series, I have a lot more confidence in the Ducks going to the Stanley Cup Finals.
Yeah, Pek Rinne has been legit the whole
He
play.
has, yes. So Gibson needs to be right on par with that. I think the Ducks defensively need to tighten up a little more. I feel like there's.
Yeah,
I feel like
third
they have.
period yesterday.
I feel like they have lapses. Like there's, the first 2 periods, it was like the entire defensive unit, along with Gibson, was working very well. And then in the third period, they kind of they slipped up a little bit. Had that bad, gave up that bad power play goal, and then it seems like it's like a snowball effect. Like once one thing goes bad, things start to really just unravel. They play well for a little while, but then they get one penalty or one thing happens, they get hit really hard or something. You know what I mean? It's just like they start to unravel. So they need to come together. I really don't like that. Like how you mentioned, I believe that was Kessler that came out and said that they didn't feel like game 1.
Cogliano.
Sorry, Cogliano, who came out and said that they didn't feel like they didn't take game 1 seriously. I don't like that at all. I don't want to hear that. This is the Western Conference Finals.
Yeah.
You are 1 series away from going to the Stanley Cup, and you didn't take game 1 seriously?
Well, especially with the Ducks and their kind of the way they've been choke artists the last couple of years in big games.
Now,
why you'd not come in and just try to.
You want to say you lost game one because of, you guys were just fatigued and all that. I understand that more, so I'm not saying it's an excuse, but I understand that. But when you want to come out and say that you guys didn't have the right mindset going into it, that's BS.
Yeah.
That's not that. I don't ever say that again.
No, exactly. And they did make it up by playing really well against Nashville in the next game.
They
winning
did.
5-3.
They did.
But no, I agree with you. As far as a team that's been pretty confident and been well-spoken the entire playoffs, for them to come out and say something like that was surprising to me.
Yeah.
And it did make sense, but that's the way it looked on TV, too.
It was. And so going into, game 4, I don't know. I don't want to call it a must-win.
Oh, no, it's a must-win.
Okay.
I agree with you.
But it almost feels like that.
Nashville's too good. Nashville is either of these teams I could see winning the Stanley Cup.
Yes.
I would favor them over the Eastern Conference teams.
Yes.
The goaltending, freaking Nashville has Yossi, Ekholm, and Subban on their defense. I think that might be the best 3 defensemen on one team I can think of. And then you combine that with James Neal and Ryan Johansson and Victor Arvidsson. It's just, they got a good team. And then the Ducks, obviously, they got their 3 young defensemen in Fowler and Vatanen and Lindholm and then Getzlaf and Perry and Kessler. Those are 6 of the really good players in the NHL. So, no, I think this is a must-win for the Ducks. And I think, especially after they gave away that game yesterday, they essentially gave up 4 goals.
Yes, 2 of them obviously didn't count.
3 goals in that third period. 2 of them didn't count, but the way they had played in that third period, they should have gave up 3 goals. And they're lucky they only lost by 1. And that Gibson played really well and kept him in it. And that shouldn't have to happen. The goalie has to save you as long as he can.
Yeah, no, but I think that gave Gibson a little bit of confidence going into this game 4 that, hey, you know what? I had a really good game. I made some really, really impressive stops, especially late in the game. So I think that's a good sign for the Ducks going into this game 4. Really, they need to come. The thing is for the Ducks, I think they need to come out striking. They need to come out with an aggressiveness, and I don't mean that defensively because obviously there's been a lot of big hits in this series. I'm talking about offensively.
Oh yeah, no.
I think there's been too many times, not even just in this series, but in the previous series, to where they've gone down 1-0, 2-0, and had to fight their way back. And I love the resiliency of never giving up. But when you keep putting yourselves in a hole like that,
it's kind of effective. Yeah,
I think they need to come out with a little more offensive swagger. And with a sense of urgency. And you know what? We need to go up 1-0 fast. We need to go up 2-0 fast. We need to smack them in the mouth, right? And then give ourselves somewhat of a cushion.
Yeah.
And I don't mean that as a okay, we have a cushion, we can lay off. But like I said, to have to continue to come back from these deficits, I think is eventually going to haunt this team.
Well, and the further you get in the playoffs too, the less you're going to, not necessarily, I don't want to say you don't want to, but it's like, you're really going to have to struggle to come back in these games, especially against, like I said, at the team with 3 all-star defensemen on their team. They're not going to let it happen. And a goalie that could win the award for best goalie of the year, and could be the best player in the playoffs if they were to win the Stanley Cup. So, no, I agree with you on that. I do agree they definitely need to keep up the physical aspect of the game, because I think that's what won them game 2. I didn't think they were physical enough last game. I think that's what hurt them a little bit. So I think they need to keep that up, and then so I want to transition that really quickly into the Kessler-Johansson feud. Now, to me, this just looks like 2 guys doing their jobs. Johansson is the star center, arguably the best offensive player on the Nashville Predators, being shadowed by a really rugged and tough star player in Ryan Kessler, who literally says he's going to do these things when he goes into a series. I want to read Johansson's quote after Game 2. Johansson took a couple sticks to the groin area and got an elbow from Kessler, although he did hit Kessler in the face with his stick earlier in the game. So I don't know what he was talking about as far as a dirty play. I thought that was the dirtiest play of the entire thing. But I wanted to just read his quote really quick. After Game 2 about Kessler, he said, it just blows my mind watching. I don't know what's going through his head over there talking about Ryan Kessler. Like, his family and his friends watching him play. I don't know how you can cheer a guy like that. It just doesn't make sense how he plays the game. I'm just trying to go out there and play hockey, and it sucks when you got to pull a stick out of your groin every shift. So, obviously, Kessler has that moniker of being that dirtier player, and that's why a lot of people didn't like the Vancouver Canucks, because they had guys like Bieksa and Kessler Alexander Burrows. But this is just Ryan Kessler doing his job. And I think it's just tough hockey. I think Ryan Johansson, he needs to suck it up a little bit and deal with it. And obviously, I love that Peter Laviolette, the coach for Nashville, put him out with Kessler to start that game as a center matchup. And Kessler decided to put him on his backside again because of that right at the beginning of the game. But I did like that. I think the competitiveness really will help the series. But I didn't see much wrong with the play because I think you got to know that's going to happen.
No, you do, and I think it's just the physical nature of the game. I don't know. I think you also, like you mentioned, you have to know that going into the series.
Yeah.
You have to do your scouting. You have to know which players are going to be aggressive like that, and especially if you're the star player. And it's almost like going back to when we were talking about basketball with Kawhi Leonard. If you're the star player of a team, you know the other opponent.
They tried to do this with McDavid and Gaudreau, too.
Yeah, is purposely going to game plan for you. They're purposely going to try a little bit harder to stop you or to divert you from doing what you normally do. Okay?
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, I think it's the same thing. Like, does he really want to, hurt the guy? And no, I don't think so. He's doing his job. This isn't his first year in the league, talking about Kessler. This is what he does.
Yeah.
Right?
It's what's made him a really good player.
It has. So you have to know that, and you have to be ready and willing for that physical matchup. And, so far I think he's done a great job of it. Obviously, their team is up 2-1. But listen, that's how it's going to be when you're playing the Ducks. The Ducks are a big team. They're physical. Kessler isn't the only guy that does that. But Kessler going into the series is like, this is my assignment.
Yeah.
My assignment is to go out and make his life hell.
Like I said, they did it with Gaudreau and they did it with McDavid. Didn't work as well as they didn't get in the minds of McDavid and Gaudreau as they have Johansson already. I mean, even the fact that he's kind of this flustered about it means that Kessler did his job. I do like that Laviolette came out and kind of didn't mind what Kessler did. It didn't condone it, but didn't mind it. Because Laviolette, I don't know if you remember, but when they played the Penguins a couple years ago in the playoffs, one of the games ended up having 200 penalty minutes because of a couple line brawls in the game.
Wow.
But he had guys like Claude Giroux and Scott Hartnell go after Sidney Crosby in the series. So I think he knows that's going to happen. So I think he probably told Johansson before the game, and that's probably why he started him. That's why I really like Laviolette as a coach. He said, you got to deal with it. It's going to happen. You're a star player. I would do it. I would do it to Getzlaf. I would do it to Crosby. So you got to deal with it. And it's all to obviously when you're getting speared and when you're getting an elbow to the face, although it might have been redemption for the stick to the face to Kessler, that's a little over the top. You don't necessarily want that, but I think like I said with a lot of the NBA series, just produce and score goals against the Ducks, and that's how you win the series. That's how you get back at Kessler. You don't need to fight him or anything like that, but I do think though Kessler, it might have affected them in Game 3 a little bit more than it affected in the first 2 game series. Even at the end of the game, you saw Kessler wasn't as productive this game, and the whole Ducks weren't as productive because I feel like they just really tried to play the physical game, and then that kind of hurt their defense, and they didn't even play that well of a physical game, and they ended up losing. But so I think if you're Kessler, maybe lay off Johansson a little more this next game for Game 4 and focus on scoring. Maybe you get a lead, like you mentioned, maybe you go back to it. But I think for right now, I think they really need to focus on scoring, like you said.
So you think that's the philosophy for winning Game 4?
Yeah, Game 4, I think you go out and you worry about scoring more than you worry about getting in Johansson or Subban or Yossi's head and stuff like that. Because Kessler took a pretty hard cross check at the very end of the game, which is kind of everybody to start fighting at the end of the game. And I think Nashville's kind of sick of it. And you don't want to see, because the Ducks in the past, and even last year, literally lost that series because they couldn't keep their composure against guys like James Neal, who have done some dirty things in the past. So I think if you're the Ducks, start focusing on the games and less on the extracurricular stuff, because it has bitten them or shot themselves in the foot in the past.
True.
So, Jared, your final thought for today?
Oh, my final thought. A little tough coming up with one.
We kind of covered everything.
I know we did. We covered a little bit of everything. One thing we didn't talk too much about that I guess you brought up, we mentioned in the Do You Care segment is really, I want to talk a little bit about Colin Kaepernick. Mm-hmm. And I think it's getting a little ridiculous now how he still has not been signed by a team.
Yeah.
You have Blaine Gabbert being picked up by the Cardinals. You've got Matt Barkley going to the 49ers.
He's shooting on all the backup Cardinals.
I'm just trying to think of guys who have been, perennial backups in this league who have not done as much on the field as Kaepernick.
Mm-hmm.
And at this point, it is very obvious that it is not just his football skills that are holding him back from joining an NFL roster. Now, I understand that, there may be some teams that don't want to bring on the baggage that Kaepernick has. But the baggage isn't like he was in a sexual assault case or because of drug use or, he has off the field issues like that. I think that if there's I think there are some specific teams in the league that have the right type of locker room, Seattle being one of them, who is actually looking at Kaepernick. I don't think this would be a right fit, but, I think New England, I mentioned Seattle. I think there's a few teams in this league who have the right mindset as an organization that can bring Kaepernick in and can deal with some of the backlash that they would get. Any team that brings him in is going to have to deal with some type of scrutiny. That's just going to be a given with the nature of what Kaepernick has done and what this has turned into now. But I think he deserves an opportunity to play. Now, I'm not saying he's going to start, and obviously if he went to Seattle, he more than likely would not start. He would obviously be Russell Westbrook's backup. But I think he deserves the opportunity to be in the league again. And the fact that he's not, to me, is very surprising and very interesting. And I'm just wondering, are teams going to bring him in for training camp? Are they going to wait for an injury to happen and then bring him on? Is he not even going to get a chance?
Yeah.
Because there's been multiple reports out there that are saying
that
Kaepernick, he still wants $10 million a year and he's asking for all this money.
Well, if he's doing that, nobody's going to sign.
He came out and he said, "I'm not looking for that type of money. I want an opportunity." So maybe he doesn't want, the scraps that a backup makes. Maybe he wants a little bit more, and I think he's proven that by leading a team to the Super Bowl. But if he's willing to take a major pay cut and just come on and be a part of the team, I don't see why a team like Seattle wouldn't take a chance on him.
Well, I know Seattle doesn't have a lot of money either, so I don't think he could ask for a lot of money.
No, and I believe right now, if I'm not mistaken, I believe Seattle's backup is it Boykin?
Trevon Boykin.
Trevon Boykin,
solid.
Who actually isn't he in trouble right now? He was in trouble for some type of scandal. I believe it was I don't know if it was a bar fighter. He's in some type of his own legal trouble right now. So I guess for Seattle, if you want to bring Kaepernick in, that's just adding fuel to the fire. But I think Kaepernick is way better than Boykin. I mean,
Boykin's been arrested two times in the last 11 days.
Okay, so I think Seattle.
Maybe this is directly.
Seattle's looking for a backup quarterback. So all I'm saying is, I think teams need to look at Kaepernick for his football ability and not just for what has happened off the field. Like I mentioned, he's not involved in any sexual assault, lawsuit or anything. No domestic violence. As far as we know, he's not a drug addict or an alcoholic or anything like that. So I think that he deserves an opportunity, and I feel that there are teams out there that should at least bring him in for a tryout or a workout or bring him into training camp. Not saying that you have to sign him for the year, but at least give the guy an opportunity. This is the land of second opportunities and second chances, and I believe that he deserves one.
Yeah, I think if he asks for too much money, that's what's going to get people, because you're not going to, number one, if you're a backup, first of all, you don't want to pay a backup that much money anyways. But then, I just think for some reason a lot of GMs are scared of like the not off the field stuff, literally on the field stuff, just the protesting and stuff. I don't get it. I don't really think it's that big of a deal. I think that's more the media anyways creating all that stuff anyways. I mean, who cares if he kneels during the national anthem, to be honest? I could care less. Like, it's not that big of a deal to me. It definitely does rub some people the wrong way, and for some reason front office guys really take that seriously, but I agree. He's definitely good enough to play in the NFL, so if they hold that against him, you got to think about what's going through the heads of some of these GMs. and I'm not talking about the ones that have backups. Like a team like the Cardinals didn't need a guy like Kaepernick. They got Drew Stanton. They wanted, I think they wanted another arm and stuff like that. So they signed a guy like Blaine Gabbert. Arians has also said in the past that he liked Gabbert when he came out of the draft too. So I think that's the thing about Gabbert as far as him, just me knowing the team and stuff. But I agree with you. I do think Kaepernick deserves a shot with a team and to earn a spot. I don't think he should just necessarily be given a spot, but definitely earn a spot. My final thought of the day, another quarterback, Pat Mahomes, the second. I almost said the third for no reason. Pat Mahomes' second was robbed at gunpoint in Texas the other day. And so I mean, not much to talk about. I just kind of wanted to let people know if they didn't know. But imagine that. You get drafted by the Chiefs, top 10, probably earlier than you thought. You're going to get a lot of money, and the next thing you know, you get out of the car and the guy has a gun. I mean, talk about like a, no pun intended, but like a shot in the arm there. Like, it's reality hits where, like, you can have all the good things in life. You get drafted to the NFL, get about to get paid millions of dollars, and a guy come up with you with a gun and come up to your car and attempt to rob you and your 3 friends. So, it's interesting. Anything can happen in this world, and obviously that shows with Pat Mahomes that these celebrity quarterbacks necessarily aren't. They're not free from that kind of stuff as well.
Not at all.
Yeah. So, that was just my final thought. That's a podcast. It's a good podcast.
Yes, sir.
We'll be back talking about hopefully the NBA series being really good. Potentially they could both be like 2-2 when we come back. And the NHL playoffs, their series will be coming to an end next week. And if any other news comes out, we'll be talking about that too. But for Nick Neenan,
I'm Jared Smith.
and this has been the Cover 2 Podcast. Back again next Wednesday.